Hello and welcome to Module 1. This is Jim Marion. I'm your instructor for this course, and I thought I would give you a brief overview of some of the key themes that are mentioned in Chapter 1 of your readings this week: Services Marketing, Integrated Customer Focus Across the Firm. There are multiple themes in this book, but I want you to know that this course is not just about customer service and delivering good customer service. It's about the offering of services in general and the importance of offering services as part of today's service economy and as part of a business desiring to become profitable. Because, as we are seeing increasingly, it's very difficult to be profitable or sustain profitability as a product business alone. So let's look at some of the foundations for service marketing. In Chapter 1, we want you to understand what services are and know something about the important trends, and also look at the profound impact of technology. Technology-based services are increasingly what people buy these days. In fact, if you've got an iPhone, you probably have iTunes or the cloud. You use their operating system. You're able to download and utilize applications. When we talk about these things, what we're really talking about is services that complement the product. And actually, it is Apple's ecosystem that drives the profitability of Apple, not simply the hardware. Because without access to that ecosystem, preferential compatibility with other Apple products, without those intangibles, Apple would not be able to, encourage someone to spend $199 on an MP3 player, for example. So services are increasingly important, and we see a lot of examples of service industries. These are well known. You know, if you go to the doctor, that's healthcare service. You could also think of a university as educational services. But I want to point out that this course is not just about service industries, but it's also about product companies that offer services. Notice that the gross domestic product has an increasingly high percentage of service-related contribution to the GDP. One interesting factor about services that you need to consider is the fact that they're intangible. This shows a range of tangibility from pure products to pure services, and you can see that services are intangible, and when companies offer services, they're often offering intangibles, and when product companies offer services, they're offering intangibles to complement the tangible products. And there's a broad range of tangibility. So services dominate the U.S. and worldwide economies. They're imperative in a goods-focused business. And early on, when we considered services and a goods-focused business, we thought about in terms of being kind to the customer. The customer is king. The customer is always right. Go above and beyond to serve that customer. And certainly that component is important. But the subject we are really talking about here is offering complementary products that are no longer just tangible goods. There are intangible service products that are layered on top of the tangible products offered to customers. How you market those services is different, and some would say that service leads to profits. In fact, it's often said today that without the offering of a service component, a physical goods-based company cannot expect to be profitable. For example, consider that before GM collapsed, when the stock market valued GM, they valued the automobile manufacturing component at nearly zero, and all the value of the company went to GMAC, the financial arm of the company. So instead of GM being an automobile company, really it was a money-lending operation that made cars to give them the basis for which they could lend money. So they were actually not selling cars, they were selling money. But to sell money, you had to make cars. Interesting. The labor force is increasingly service-focused. Notice the growth through 2009. Also, percent of gross domestic product, very high. Here's goods companies that are expanding into services. I'm sure you're familiar with Boeing's repair and maintenance operations. They also have ways to monitor the ongoing health of the airplane in flight. GE, you may be familiar with GE Capital. GE sells a lot of capital-intensive goods, so there's a strong financing arm that goes along with GE. And in our discussion this week, we saw that IBM shifted from being a product-oriented company to being a service-oriented company. In the case of IBM, it was really decided that IBM has all this know-how and expertise, and that expertise can be translated into products. But it was determined they just weren't earning the necessary returns by taking expertise and translating into products. But if instead they translated those into services, they could produce above-market sustained returns. So this is one reason why IBM shifted from consultative services from a pure hardware focus. Here's some important characteristics of services. They're intangible, perishable, simultaneous production and consumption. It's delivered in a very dynamic way. You can't inventory services. So here's what to remember. You can't inventory, you can't easily patent them, you can't readily display them, it's difficult to price. Service delivery and customer satisfaction depend on employee and customer actions, so it's imperative you have really sharp employees who are passionate about what they do, because there's a big difference in employees that really don't care and those who do care, and the service quality is greater or lesser depending on that. In goods, the product is separate from consumption, but in services it's not. Production and consumption happen at the same time, and it's perishable. So, intangible products, i.e. services, very challenging, but it's also very commonly the type of product that STEM-oriented professionals are going to be a part of. If you are going to be a consultant or you're working with a company that provides technological know-how or delivers software, intellectual property, you're going to be involved in delivering intangible services. Service quality depends on many uncontrollable factors. You need to be aware of this, especially in a software or STEM-related service firm. The smarter and more capable your people, the better your product. Notice that since production and consumption happens at the same time, customers are part of the transaction. Customers affect each other. Employees affect the service outcome. It's difficult to do mass production of the service. And it's also difficult to synchronize supply and demand with services. You can't return them or resell them. Notice the search, experience, and credence qualities. That this is a continuum evaluation of different types of products. It's easy to evaluate clothing, jewelry, furniture. It becomes you get an overlap with goods and services when you talk about restaurant meals, vacations, haircut, childcare, high-end experience qualities, high-end credence qualities, meaning believability or credibility of the service. So it's easy to evaluate something like clothing or jewelry, but more difficult to evaluate auto repair or a root canal. So how people evaluate services is something to consider. Challenges for marketers. How are you going to improve quality? What about new services that you may roll out? And I had some direct experience with a product company that offered a service for the first time, and it didn't go well. And I've seen a number of product companies have this challenge, because if you're selling products to customers, then you start selling them a service. If they don't like the service, they may stop ordering the product or may try to withhold payment on the product. And the company may not be good at offering services just because they're good at offering products. So it's a real dilemma of how you're going to organize this. So there's lots of issues and challenges. Now, service experiences cause us to expand upon the 4 P's of marketing. You think of the 4 P's, it's product, price, place, and promotion. That's the 4 P's. But in marketing, you have something called the 7 P's. You take product, price, place, and promotion, which means what is it you're going to sell, how much are you going to charge, how are you going to deliver it, how are you going to market it and sell it. But you can add 3 more P's to this. People, all those who play a role in service delivery. Physical evidence. How do you try to make tangible that which is fundamentally intangible? And finally, the process, the procedures, the mechanism, and the flow of activities. So 4 P's become 7 P's, and you have an expanded marketing mix for your services. So I wanted to give you a quick overview of Module 1. The takeaways here: services are very important. STEM employees and professionals play a big role in services because technological know-how is a key component of most of the intangibles that are sold today. You can't inventory services. They're perishable. It's highly dependent on the quality of people delivering them. So it provides a range of challenges, and businesses need to think clearly about offering services, especially businesses that were expert at delivering products, because services and products require very different capabilities. You may be good at one and not the other, so it requires a lot of thoughtful consideration before you implement it. So that's a brief overview of Chapter 1 for Module 1. We'll next take a look at Chapter 2 and take a look at the first step at evaluating the capabilities of offering services and introducing you to the conceptual framework, the GAPS model of service quality. We'll see you in Chapter 2.